Alright guys, good morning. I'm doing this video in the morning because it's cooler right now. But as you saw in the adjustment video, the right side brakes were really nice and everything was good. But I found a big problem, and I found out why the rear was locking up on me when I would jam on the brakes. And I did adjust the left side up. So this is the left side. As you can see, I'm down to rivet heads. So what that means is every time I would hit the brakes, they were so far away that that metal rivet would jam into the drum and lock it up. So today we're going to show you how to change the drum brakes on your 98 GMC or Chevy pickup. And this is going to go for a lot of drum brakes. Your springs here will vary from vehicle to vehicle, but essentially you have this is the first mainspring you take off. It goes around the post here, and you have a second mainspring, and you have a smaller spring that goes to your self-adjuster, and then more springs down here for the self-adjuster. And you even have one, see if I can get down here, one way down here across the self-adjuster. So, and I don't know if you can see, but this self-adjuster is way out. I mean, it's almost an inch out. The other side is not that far, but it did stop the locking up until I could take the opportunity to do this. And the first spring to take off obviously is this one. It's in the front on this post, and you can see there's a smaller U-thing going to the parking brake, and it's supposed to, you know, allow it to shift back and forth and adjust the self-adjuster, which it's not doing. So hopefully we can do this in just one part today. And I'm going to focus on the right side because that's the best camera angle I can get for everything. So we're just going to get going on it. Try to do it quickly, but not too quickly. Don't be intimidated by all the springs. What I do is I lay them out as I take them off in the position that they came in, off in. And if you do brakes, you have this here bar. It's got a hook on this end, and that goes right over this post, and you hook it under each spring and it pops it right off. You got to pay attention to your orientation of your spring as it comes out of the shoe. So this one was facing down, and you just take that one off. I make my little circle on the ground over here. So the next one is this bigger one that runs down to the self-adjusting arm, but it's also hooked by the smaller spring to the brake shoe. Let's see if we can get them off together, just like that. So what happened is, now that this is loose, we can pop the smaller spring out here, or not. So the smaller spring goes to the shoe. There's holes throughout the shoe, and you just got to remember which hole it came out of. So the smaller spring hooks to the bigger bar that goes to the self-adjuster. So you lay that out. Then you take your self-adjuster bar and get it off of this parking brake piece, because that pulls on the lever for the parking or the self-adjuster. So you lay that out on the ground, and this piece will come out together. But you have these little retaining springs for the actual shoes, and it's a pin going through the back and this spring. And You guys may not have all these nice little tools here, but you can use pliers and screwdrivers to do the same thing. So you gotta get it to, they'll be locked in, and I'll show you here in a minute. You twist them, and they let go. I'll show you here. See, there's a slot here. Pull your pin through the back, and the pin has a slot on it. And the slot goes through the pin, and then you twist the plate sideways, and it locks it in. So it'll lock it in so it won't come through the back. So that's the back side. We'll put that over here in order, and that frees up this whole shoe. Now, the whole self-adjuster comes out as one piece here, and there is a thing here for the spring, because that little holder spring goes into this seat and it goes through the shoe, but you don't have to worry about this other spring. Where'd that go? There is a small spring on the bottom that's trying to escape. Tilt it down here. So this little spring goes on here like that, and it just sits on the bottom of the shoe, inside of the shoe here, and it just, you know, it springs it back and forth. And we'll put that in its orientation, everything together, and that's the back shoe. Now the only thing holding the shoe on right now is the actual parking brake. In this bar here, this is just a spacer bar, and you can't get that out till you do the front shoe. So we're going to take the spring off the front here. I know you really couldn't see that, but it's the same thing. It's a pin and a spring with a slot in the bar. Just on the back, just like on the back side. So we'll put them over there. Now your shoes are all loose. Now, I don't know if this piece up here will come off, but now you only have one spring. So what I do is I'll pull the top apart like that, and this center bar here comes right out, and you have to remember which way this went in, because it's got a, you know, it's got a hook springing on it, so it kind of springs on the front shoe. And remember the orientation that it came out. This side was facing the car, so your little dip here faces the car, and the spring thing faces the front. And we'll set that in its orientation. So now we're onto the bottom, which is just one more spring and the actual self-adjuster. So what I'll do is I'll use the spring, and I'll pull the adjuster off first. Oh, and it's going to fall apart. So the adjuster's off, and I'll just turn it in a little bit because it was way out. But if you take the self-adjuster off first, it frees up the spring, so the spring is easier to handle, because this bottom spring hooks both pads together, and it came out like this. So that's its orientation. And then you just have your front shoe. There's nothing else attached to the front shoe, but the back shoe has the parking brake attached to it. Now this is just a small horseshoe clip, and you can get after them with either a flathead screwdriver or a pair of pliers. I might go to a pair of pliers because this is not really doing much here. There we go. What I did is I put this edge on the stub that sticks out and the bottom edge on the actual clip, and I used the post as leverage to pop that out. And then now I can get there's a gap here, and I can get a screwdriver in there. And do not lose this clip. It may go flying a little bit, but try not to lose it unless you have a spring kit. I did not purchase a spring kit because these springs are still really nice. So there's your C-clip that holds the parking brake onto the shoe pad. We'll put that over here in our pile of stuff, and then you just kind of work it loose back and forth, which I don't think my parking brake was working because I never use it. And you work it back and you can slowly free it up. But oh my god, look at that. Even this was touching the drum. So it's definitely time to change these. And I thought I was doing good because the other side, when I did the adjustment video, the other side looked perfect. I mean, it couldn't look more perfect. I thought everything was okay till I came over to adjust this side. So it's almost out here. Maybe a little screwdriver for leverage will help. Maybe not. There we go. So you can see the nub on the parking brake lever. And it's got a groove in here for the clip. So you got to make sure it pushes through the new shoe. Now these shoes will all have the same holes on both sides. They're supposed to be front and rear, I think. But I think now they just come front or rear, and they just all have the same holes in the same place, and you just remember where they came apart. So we got her all apart. Everything else looks good. So I'm going to take a second here and move the camera. I'll show you how I do this. So as you can see, those are pliers. Everything is spread out exactly the way it came off. That's how I do brakes on the drums, because it's always a lot harder to remember what went where. So I've got everything I need. I'm not going to be doing the wheel cylinders, and they're not leaking yet. Anyways, so we're just going to pause this for a minute so I can get everything opened up and ready to reinstall. Okay, I was wrong. The new brakes are different. This has a long shoe wrapped around it, covering the whole thing, and this one has a shorter shoe glued to it. So on these brakes, when you get a long and a short, the long is your primary, and it always goes on the front, toward the front of the car. So the short one goes on the back. So now you start your reassembly. First you start with your parking brake. Get that installed, just like that. Take your clip, and it's easier just to use a pair of pliers. Once your clip is in position, just take your pliers and pop it back in, just like that. And we'll just let that hang out here for a minute. Or hang down there, whatever it wants to do. So next up, we got to do the reverse process. We'll take the lower spring and loop it in the bottom hole. Then we'll take our front shoe and we'll loop that together. And wish it would stay all together. So apparently it's not going to work that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pin and my spring on the front and reinstall that. So there, I reinstalled the front pin. It'll help hold things together. Now you can see here on your cylinder, these trucks have a spacer with 2 hash marks. So those hash marks will go into this groove here. Now what I'm going to do is take the self-adjuster and it came out this way. The screws in the back because that's where the adjuster pin is. And you might have to fight that bottom spring, but it's there to keep tension and it's doing its job for me anyways. I'm trying so careful not to pop any of that out. Then you take your bar, remember which way it went in, and that goes here on the bottom piece. And your self-adjuster has to line up with that, or your parking brake bar has to go in there as well as everything else. So now we're ready to put in the self-adjusting bar because that has to go in before the small spring. So we just set that down here, and there's a hole already in the brake shoe for that lineup pin. So then we take our pin, put it through the back, just had the thing, and I poked up through the hole here. Now this is where it's critical here, because you have to make sure that this is aligned with your tool. So what you do is make sure that slot is lined up with the pin, and since I got my tool here, obviously I'm going to use that. And I do have a window in here. The tool has a window to help me get things lined up. And there you go. That is the pins installed. So now we just have to reinstall the arm for the self-adjuster. Like that. Now I'm not going to loop it around this top piece till I get this other spring in. So this is how it came out. So you loop it in the hole there, and since this is all down already, I'll try to get this back in over here. There we go. This is where your tool comes in handy, because this edge here, there's a little hook here that goes around your post. So you take your, slide it through your spring, pull it up, well, that's not what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to hook that spring right back. There. Now your spring's hooked around. And then the last spring came off like this and hooks like that. So you take it over and you put it in your other pad. Get your hook on there. And there you have it. There's your brake install. You just may have to move it around a little bit to keep it in line. And then the last step for this is to adjust them to where you get your drag on your drum. So I'm not going to show you the adjustment because I already did a video on that, and that's when I found this problem. So it's not too hard. Now I've done this plenty of times, so it only took me like 20 minutes. So I want to go over real quick exactly what and where. So now the sun's shining here. So there's a hole here. The spring hooks in there, and then you just guide it around here. You can use a flathead screwdriver too. And the same over here. There's a hole here. You hook it in, and you hook it up to the lever and hook the lever back up. So now all this is held in by the one coily spring, retaining spring and pin. And that's all one piece. It comes out together except for that little spring. Don't lose that little spring. Then you got your self-adjuster down here, which I've turned in, and one more spring above that that hooks into two holes on either side of the shoes. Then you got your bar that doesn't move at all. It's just like a spacer bar. It keeps the front divided. And as you can see, the spacer pins in here slide into those grooves, and that's what gives the wheel cylinder to push out. So what happens is, as you hit the brake, it pushes the shoes out at the top, so when you adjust the bottom to always touch, and then it pushes it and makes full contact. And then when you let off, the springs pull it back in to make sure it doesn't stay, the brakes stay on all the time. So I hope this video was you know, kind of instructional for you on how to change drum brakes pretty much on any car. The spring setup varies from car to car. So this is for the mid-90s GMC or Sierra pickup or Chevy pickups. So till the next video, y'all have a good day.